postpone the hearings. So whatever we don't get to today, we take up tomorrow. And I was already tentatively going to put on the agenda for tomorrow all of the official days, weeks, months, minutes of Pongal Day and the like. Not that I want all of them passed. In fact, I want it to be extremely, extremely select, if not totally blanket, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it tomorrow, this year, next year, any year, because Congress spends a lot of time picking which day and which hour is going to be what official. So anyway, they're all on tomorrow. Now there is one exception, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. So the honorary days and weeks and months will be up tomorrow, all of them, and also any remaining work groups, study groups, summer study bills, and I want to take all of them up together so we can see how many there are, because there generally is a feeling of not creating too many. So there may be a couple other bills as well. So whatever we don't get to, we're going to try to squeeze in that hour to 2.5 hours tomorrow. After that, in terms of crossover, it gets difficult if we voted Friday, whether it's going to make it Monday. It doesn't mean it's dead. It just means it might have some rules problem in the House. Okay. The public financing bill was approved by Budget and Tax, so that will be on the floor for the gubernatorial election. The immigrant center or office without mandated money was also approved. So with that, we're going to get into today's list. Any questions about anything I shared? Okay, let's start with 536.
Okay, Senate Bill 536. As introduced, this bill prohibits Montgomery County from imposing a charge pursuant to a local system of charges for stormwater management on an organization that offers agricultural exhibitions and is exempt from taxation under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. There is an amendment in your packet on page 10 being offered by Senator King. This amendment would alter the prohibition to apply not to counties, but to any municipality. So it would say a municipality may not impose a charge established under the subsection dealing with stormwater management on an organization that offers agricultural exhibitions and is exempt from taxation under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. The amendment would also sunset the bill after 2 years on June 30th, 2023.
Okay, before I entertain a motion, I have a question for council. It's my understanding there are only 2 or 3 locations in the state. I think Timonium, Montgomery County, and maybe one other exist. In terms of this exhibitions or host them, do we know?
I don't know how many there are overall. I have heard, but I have not had this verified, that the only ones that are located within municipalities are the ones in Gaithersburg and the one in Frederick. But I don't know that for certain.
And Timonium is not a municipality, obviously. But are they not required? Do we know if they're required to pay this or not? Timonium?
Located in a municipality, so they're not charged a stormwater fee by a municipality.
Are they charged by the county?
I don't know, and I
Okay. Hand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And your dialogue with the council answered my question. This is about the stormwater fee for county fairs and local fairs. I checked with Anne Arundel County. Our county fair is actually on state land, which the fair organization leases for $1 a year. So if there's a fee paid, they don't care. It's going to come out of the state funds. But I'm very supportive of the issue, so at the appropriate time, I'd like to move the bill.
But we're going to get a chance to debate it. So any motion, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move unfavorable on this bill, and if there's a second, I'd like to explain the journey of this bill.
Is that a second, Senator Ellis?
So I started off, this bill started off as unanimously supported by the delegation. It was going to give the Gaithersburg Fairgrounds, a nonprofit organization, 2 years to deal with the realities of COVID and not being able to have a fair. This has become a hot mess, and the city of Gaithersburg has been dealing in good faith, and it is just, they wanted 3 years, then it turns out there were constitutional issues with just doing a local bill and just addressing Gaithersburg. So they had to go statewide, which then is a mandate on everyone, everywhere. MML is strongly against it. We just got this amendment today, and I have not, just in disclosure, I have not heard back officially from MACO, but the idea of fixing one issue in one municipality, in one county with a statewide legislation, I think is a bad idea. And so I think we ought to kill this. We ought to do it better in the future, if there's ever a future. But they're taking money from a municipality that also needs the funds, and they're not negotiating in good faith. So my motion stands.
The floor is open. Senator Gallion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is it the Fair Board that is not, you're saying is not negotiating in good faith, or who? I mean, there's two sides here. I'm not sure who we're talking.
There are commitments that have been made that haven't been kept. The language keeps changing, the process keeps changing, and what we get presented with. This is, I think, the third or fourth different amendment that this committee has been presented with. It's still not as clean and narrow as what I think is appropriate, and I'm only one vote on this committee. And I am willing, I mean, my personal effort in all of this has been to cut the baby in half. Gaithersburg has to take a little bit of hit, but let's support our fairgrounds. And this has just not worked out the way it's supposed to. And so that's the best answer I can give you without
Okay, so and
going
you
deeper than
mentioned
that.
early on that originally the whole county delegation was on board, I guess, with the original bill. Mm-hmm. So where do they stack up now? Are there eight and four against? I mean,
Well, that's another issue, actually. We have not voted again. We have not. The delegation has not even seen the revised amendment.
Yeah, Senator, because it's now a statewide bill, even though it looks like it only affects Montgomery County Fairgrounds, as a statewide bill, local delegation doesn't hold any factor in this.
well, it could hold a factor in how I vote. I'd kind of like to know what, if this is just affecting this one county, it'd be nice to know where they are currently on the bill.
Well, I can tell you the majority leader wants it. It's her amendment. The vice chair here doesn't want it, and I don't know where the other six stack up.
I can also tell you that the majority leader has been notified that MML is in opposition now.
Okay.
And so this won't be a surprise if the committee votes unfavorable.
Senator Riley.
I'd like to move we hold it till we get a revised letter from the delegation. I understand it has statewide implications, but it's such a narrow issue, specifically to Montgomery County. I think it's appropriate to wait till we get a new letter.
I can go to the delegation chair and ask them how the 8 would vote on this new bill, which is a statewide bill, but it's not a local bill anymore, even though the effect is local in nature. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they would take a formal vote. I mean, someone would have to go to each senator, because I don't think they have a meeting scheduled the next 24 hours or 20 hours. So I understand your point. Before I rule on that, I'm going to, Senator Hester.
I was just trying to find the amendment, and I believe I did. We're talking about the amendment on page 10 and 11 of the packet.
Yes.
So would these are the fees that go into the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund?
No.
No.
Stormwater.
These are local stormwater management fees.
Okay.
So these are, right, so these are the ones that are, these are the ones that are set by the local jurisdictions and collected by the local jurisdictions for stormwater management.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And I was just handed a document. Frederick Fairgrounds paid $1.20. Their assessment was $1. Howard County had 0. Maryland State Fair, which I assume was Timonium, was 0. St. Mary's County was 0. Montgomery County Fair was $79,000. So I think the question is, do we want to give the Montgomery County Fairgrounds a break on $79,000, which will also be less revenue for the municipality it sits in? But I think that's the fundamental issue in front of us. I'm willing to hold it a day. If people want to do some reconnaissance, I'm not sure we're going to get a Montgomery County delegation consolidated opinion. But if people want to do some homework, I'm willing to hold it for a day.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a letter from Mako that I'm happy to share or hold. It's fine. If we're holding the bill, then I can hold reading that.
More concerned with the 8 Montgomery County senators, not the organizational opposition. So Senate Bill 536 is in the hold pile for tomorrow. Obviously, you can talk to seatmates, people on the floor, do whatever information gathering you need to do. Let's go to 737. We have some people with us.
Yes, can you do that? Can I grab one from you first? Thank you. Apologies. So Senate Bill 737, Comprehensive Conservation Finance Act. This bill makes changes to a broad variety of existing programs related to environmental conservation and natural resources management, and expands opportunities for agencies to obtain private investment and financing for state environmental projects, including conservation efforts, restoration projects, and the installation or repair of green and blue infrastructure. The bill also alters existing and establishes new state policies for several related programs and establishes a new work group, commission, and task force. The primary agencies that are affected are the Maryland Department of Agriculture, the Maryland Department of the Environment, and the Department of Natural Resources, but there are changes to procurement and contracting opportunities for additional agencies. So there are amendments in your packet, beginning on page 12. And the document that was just passed around is a reprint of the bill with the amendments. Most of these amendments were responding to several agencies that offered letters of support with amendments to the bill itself. So a couple of notable things, if you look on pages 8 through 10 of the reprint, there is a modification to the definition of blue and green infrastructure that is intended to clarify that it's natural elements or engineered elements that are designed to mimic or enhance the function of a natural element. There are also changes to the authorization to use reforested state lands for forest carbon programs. So this is on page 22 of the bill, or of the reprint. It would only apply to forests on state lands that are restored on or after July 1st, 2021, the bill's effective date. There are provisions that deal with the Maryland Department of Agriculture contracts, easements, and agreements. These are on page 5 of the reprint. So this would limit or clarify that those provisions only apply to cost-sharing contracts or agreements. There are also a number of kind of technical and clarifying changes made throughout the bill, which I can go into more details if anybody has questions about any of the specific ones. And we do have, I believe, some of the people who worked on this legislation on the call if people have specific questions. It's a long, complicated bill.
Okay, let's put it before us. Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second it to get it on the floor. The amendment. The amendments are before us. Senator Carrozza.
I just wanted to, I was looking for the best summary of the bills after Ms. Morton said it was complex. I think I understand the focus is this comprehensive conservation finance system that we're putting in place. And I'm looking at the Maryland Department of the Environment's testimony in support of the bill, and they outlined the key features. Is that the best, not being an expert on these conservation financing, is that the best checklist to review, or Ms. Morton?
Well, we have with us former Secretary of Natural Resources for the state of Maryland, John Griffin. John, could you give a concise summary like the elevator version?
Sure. Yes, Mr. Chairman, and hello, members of the committee. John Griffin here. I also have my colleague Tim Mayle on. Yes, this is a bill that really amends a number of state policies to authorize, authorize certain policies, not mandate them. The focus is on expanding definitions and authorizations for both green and blue infrastructure, amending, for example, the state revolving funds administered by MDE for drinking water and clean water to bring into the authorizations allowable uses of those funds under the Federal Clean Water Act that haven't been reflected yet in the state laws, and really focus on forest conservation, forest restoration, headwater protection for streams. We have developed a fairly detailed section that authorizes what's called pay for success contracting, which is an authorization, not a mandate. And that used to be called pay for performance, but the restoration investment industry has spent a lot of time developing parameters for this. We create two task forces, one on developing further policies as recommendations to the General Assembly on green and blue infrastructure, and one on developing accounting standards under a GASB, government accounting Standards Board that would help promote accounting for natural assets first developed for water utilities, but we want to see how far we can expand it. So I would also say on your climate bill that this is a nice complement to that and further some of the goals of the bill, that is now passed out of the Senate. Tim, is there anything I'm not hitting? I'm sorry, go ahead.
John, so again, trying to summarize, this allows for, does not mandate, opportunities for innovation and new investment into both DNR and the environment and waterways and other things. I mean, is that?
Yes. I would also, I forgot to mention, we're authorizing DNR for forest lands, private forest lands in their own, as well as MDA to engage in developing carbon offset markets, which is another important. Maryland is way behind compared to other states in the Bay region, particularly Pennsylvania and Virginia. So again, these are authorizations.
Okay, let me stop you there.
So that was helpful. My specific question on the pay for success procurement, where it says that it allows state agencies to buy environmental outcomes. Could you give some examples of that?
I'm going to pass it to Tim, but go ahead, Tim. That's okay.
Tim, introduce yourself.
Tim, you got to unmute. Tim.
Unmute. Tim, unmute, please.
Yeah. I can answer it. Basically, environmental outcomes as defined.
Hold on.
The restoration investment industry.
John, hold on. Hold on, John.
Okay.
Tim, are you on now?
Tim, are you on? There's something going on. I don't know what.
Okay. Until we get it right, try to finish your answer.
Yeah. Basically, environmental outcomes, to use shorthand, governments fund a lot of projects, but they don't buy outcomes. And the purpose of the pay for success procurement authorization rests on the notion, which is dealt with by definition, that to the extent that private capital and private financing is involved, they do not get paid until successful outcomes have been delivered and determined to be so. So you're paying for outcomes, not just funding projects, which is a standard which all the private investment and private restoration companies relate to, because then you have some specific metrics for nitrogen, nutrient pollution, for carbon sequestration, you name it.
Okay, thank you, John. Let's hold
Did that answer your question?
We think so. Senator Carrozza?
That was helpful.
Well, the amendments are before us. Any objection to adopting the amendments? Madam Vice Chair.
I just have a quick question. We can adopt the amendments first if you like.
Any objection to adopting the amendments? Seeing none, the bill before you is the bill as amended. Open for questions and debate. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 46 of the interlineated bill, 46 and 47, you're putting a lot of smart people in the room, and it looks like the right people. On page 47, lines 21 and 22, it says they're going to meet at least once a year. This is only a 3-year effort from 2021, July 1 of 2021 to June 30th of 2024. It seems like a lot of work with a lot of smart people to only meet 3 times, potentially. Is that what's expected, and will you be able to accomplish what you need with possibly just 3 meetings?
Very good question, Madam Vice Chair, and the answer is we expect that they would meet more frequently than that, certainly in the first couple of years. But if you would like to amend the bill to require at least 3 meetings a year or 4, that would be fine with us.
I defer to the chair or to council, whatever makes sense, but that just seems paltry to get a lot of work done.
Good point. Thank you.
I don't have any wisdom on this. I mean, we could do 3, we can do whatever.
3 seems good.
Fine. Any objection to changing that to at least 3? Yes. Yeah, I think if we want to add including virtual, that's fine too. I don't think, that's, I think, going to become commonplace in the code. Okay, with seeing no objection, we're going to say at least 3, and we're going to including virtual. Further debate or questions about the bill as amended? Further debate or questions? Senator Ellis.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going through this, it was mentioned about putting some accounting standards on some of these projects, and the organization from accounting perspective that will send a representative is the Maryland Society of Accounting and Tax Professionals. And I think the folks who are most knowledgeable about accounting standards are in the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants. Is there a reason why the Maryland Society of Accounting and Tax Professionals were selected over, say, the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants, who have like over 10,000 certified public accountants in Maryland, who really are experts in tax and accounting and standards?
If that may have been our oversight, Senator Ellis, and we'd certainly be open to adding them to this task force.
Okay.
Senator, what page or line were you on? I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry. Page 49, line 10.
Well, if you want to add an amendment, let's do it. If not, let's move on.
Well, yeah,
So,
okay, I'll propose an amendment to make the representatives from the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants.
in addition or instead of?
Instead of.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. Mr. Griffin, was there a particular
Yes, Mr. Chair.
was there a particular reason of having the Maryland Society of Accounting Tax Professionals? I mean, there's a question of whether we have 2 tax people on or 1.
No, I mean, I think Senator Ellis's amendment is fine.
That's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Any objection to Senator Ellis's replacing line 10 and 11 with Maryland Society of CPAs? Okay. Accepted. Done.
It's the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants. It's Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants.
That's fine.
So MACPA.
I don't want to create a new group.
Thank you.
Trust me.
I don't want to lead you to that. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no objection, that is adopted. The bill as amended with a couple of amendments is before you. Rosapep amendments, Vice Chair amendments, and Ellis amendment. Senator Hester.
I was just curious if somebody could explain how this fits with Senator Gazzoni's bill. The one that deals with the Bay?
Is Tim or John, are you familiar with the Chesapeake Commission bill
Yes.
in terms of investment? How do they, what is the interplay?
Well, actually, as part of this bill, when we were developing it, Mr. Chair and members, we did have a version of the Clean Water Commerce Act, which is what Senator Gazzoni's bill addresses, removing the sunset and authorizing it with changes. But in deference to the commission at their request, we took it out of this bill. And there's parallels there between them. This is, that of course, increases, I believe, the VRF suballocation to this program from 10 million to 20 million. But there's a lot of similarity in terms of defining environmental outcomes, et cetera. So, but that's primarily a funding, affirmative funding bill. This does not have any increase in state budgetary requirements. Tim, do you want to add to that?
Yes, and hopefully you can hear me. Thank you, Senator Hester and Mr. Chairman. There's no conflict between either of the bills. We went through the documents. There's nothing that would create a conflict. They should work together very well.
Whoa, stop. Could you tell us who you are for the committee first?
Yeah, my apologies. My name is Tim Mail. I'm the Executive Director of the Environmental Policy Innovation Center. And previously worked at the White House Council on Environmental Quality.
Can I just jump in to clarify one thing, though? So one of the things that the Clean Water Commerce Act, Senator Gazzone's bill, does is it revamps the Clean Water Commerce Act and sets some specifications on environmental outcomes is defined a little bit differently under that bill. The purchase of environmental outcomes. One way that these bills would interplay is if this one passed, this one puts some additional sort of parameters on pay for success contracts. So to the extent that Clean Water Commerce Act funding was being spent on pay for success contracts for environmental outcomes, provisions from this bill would control and sort of have some interplay on how those contracts were structured. Is that accurate?
Excuse me. Senator Hester, again, the pay for success provisions in this bill are an authorization. Tim and I were on the work group that Chesapeake Bay Commission staff and members set up. And we were exchanging proposals with Ann Swanson and her staff starting last summer. It's kind of a collaborative effort, but they have a modified and shortened version of the pay for performance provision in that bill, excuse me. I don't think that's in conflict with what we have because ours is an authorization. I don't know.
Let's go back to Tim. You wanted to say a few things, Tim. You haven't had an opportunity briefly. Tim, back to you.
Yeah, on this pay for success issue, as John indicated, the overall authorization in this bill creates what I think of as a platform or the underlying framework for pay for success approaches. It provides some, but not a lot of detail. In particular, it doesn't add anything specific around pay for success in the MDE code. The Clean Water Commerce Act does. It authorizes that use of funding that John mentioned, and then it goes into detail in terms of how the program would work. So when we went through the process of developing this legislation, but also, as John mentioned, participating on that task force with the Bay Commission, at least to me, and based on the feedback that I heard in that meeting, it seems to me that they would work very well together. And at least my recollection of MDE's feedback was not that they saw any conflict either, but that would be something for them to speak to.
Yeah, and I would point out that MDE did support both the Clean Water Commerce Act and the legislation before you. They don't always support bills, as we know. They send letters and information. Further discussion on the bill as amended. Senator Hester, did you get enough of an answer? Further discussion on the bill Senator.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in the summary of the bill, it talks about changes to the Environmental Commission on Environmental Justice and Sustainable Communities. Could you someone point out where in the bill those changes might be? Because we've done a lot of changes to that commission on 2 bills, and I just want to see.
Jim, you want to do that?
I'm going to call on committee counsel.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
The changes are on pages 5 and 6. The only change is it adds to their mission the responsibility to recommend options to the Secretary of the Environment for ensuring that the department is making progress in advancing the human right to safe, clean, affordable, and accessible water for consumption, cooking, sanitation, health, and recreational purposes. So that's page 5, lines 15 through 18.
Okay. So no changes to the makeup of the commission, just in their additional duties. Okay, thank you.
Further discussion, debate on the bill as amended? Seeing none. Will anybody like to be recorded in the opposition or negative on this bill? Senator Hester, a question? Or
Yeah, no, I don't want to be negative. I had a question. I mean, there's no fiscal note on the bill, but I see
Yes, there
references.
is. Oh, excuse me.
Okay, maybe I got the wrong. I was going to ask, I mean, there's references to like revolving loan funds and then to, I saw a grant somewhere in here. I was just wondering if somebody could speak to I thought there wasn't a fiscal.
Senator, I think, and this is before the amendments, obviously, on the bottom of the first page of the fiscal note, there are operational impacts, and it's not expected to have a significant fiscal impact. And then it says it may encourage additional private investments to affected projects.
Right, so my question was going to be then, if we're mentioning these loan guarantees, like on the page 15, and I found a few other things throughout the bill. I mean, do those not change the fiscal note? Like, is there any money moving around in this bill? I'm sorry.
Really straightforward question. Is money moving around in the bill either cost or revenue to the state, or are specific funds being
Adjusted.
adjusted?
That's my question.
Jim?
Yes, Senator Hester, I'll refer specifically to the revolving loan funds. In the case of those funds, what it does is it gives MDE sort of clearer opportunity or direction to prioritize things like environmental justice benefits, lead pipe replacement, or additional kinds of green infrastructure. It doesn't direct them to put money into those things. It just sort of makes clear that they have that opportunity, which is also just something that federal EPA has supported and is being done in other states. So it really doesn't, require any shift in the use of those loan funds. I think that's why the fiscal note would not indicate any particular impact on the funds. MDE might subsequently use that authority to support those kinds of activities, but the bill itself wouldn't require them to do that.
Okay, back to the bill's amended is before us. Would anybody like to be recorded in negative or opposition to the bill? Seeing no hands or lights go off, we will record this as 11-0 and pass 9. What's the number? Pass 937 to the floor. 737. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for helping us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you so much.
Wait 1 second. Do you need them, Senator Hester? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to be added along with Senator Hester? Senator Washington? Okay. Bill will be directed to the floor. 664, we're going to have to take up tomorrow. They're still working on the amendments. We want to get back to that bill. Let's go to 749.
Senate Bill 749, Charles County Board of Education Membership Alterations. This bill alters the selection method for members of the Charles County Board of Education by requiring that 6 board members be elected from the school board districts and 1 board member be elected from the county at large. Under current law, the 7 board members are elected from the county at large. In addition, the bill provides the student member with full voting rights and removes the restriction that prohibited the student member from attending executive sessions except by invitations. There is one amendment from Senator Ellis starting on page 16 of your packet, and there is a local letter, including a change in letter from the county government that is now supporting the bill as amended. So these amendments alter the number of elected members of the board from 7 to 8. And I had a discussion with Senator Ellis and that there was a miscounting in the bill, so that should be 9. Requires 2 members to be elected from each of the 4 county commissioner districts instead of school districts. Requires 1 member to be elected from the county at large. Strikes the provisions that would have required the county commissioners to fill vacancy on the county board. Authorizes the student member to vote on all matters before the board except specifically exempted matters, and allows the board to vote on whether a matter falls within the exclusions listed, and authorizes the state board to remove the student member in the same manner as an elected member of the board.
I'll entertain a motion. I assume Senator Ellis would like to move the bill. Senator Washington seconds. Senator Ellis amendments. Any objection to that? And please.
Senator Ellis, on page 20 of our packet, the last line talks about what the student member may not vote on. So that you're leaving that question to the board members. You're not delineating that in the bill.
That is, let's see, there are some things that we authorize them to. Oh, sorry, that's up there.
So, Senator, on that, those are the limitations. They can't vote on those that are listed specifically there at the bottom of page 20. But if a matter might fall in a gray area, then the board would vote to determine whether it falls within those limited exceptions.
Okay. So, Senator, we have in Anne Arundel County one of the most unique student member authorizations in the United States. There are 1,600 plus school boards in the United States. And our 17-year-old member of the school board may vote on discipline for principals, assistant principals, administrators. They may vote on collective bargaining agreements. They may vote on capital budgets. And your limitations, in my opinion, are very appropriate. We want the student in the room. We want their opinion. But when it comes to these other very sensitive areas, I am very pleased that you have carved them out. And you're reflecting, in a sense, the vast majority of school boards throughout the United States. So I'm very supportive of your amendments. Thank you very much.
And Senator, I'm so pleased that you're pleased.
And we're all pleased that both of you were pleased. But I would say this, there was a very significant turnaround by the commissioners of Charles County. And I'm not sure what it took, Senator, but they were unalterably opposed to this at the hearing, as you may recall.
Yeah. Well, you know, Mr. Chairman, the community input is just overwhelmingly in support of these changes. And we all saw the students who came and testified for this bill. They were so sharp and bright and articulate, and we really wanted to encourage them to be taken seriously, and it does a great service to them and their student government. So we thank you.
Senator Carrozza.
Thank you, and I appreciate that fact the bill's been worked out. But I'm looking at the kind of the written notes coming from the House side, and the explanation that Ms. Goodman just gave on. We went from 7 to 8 to 9. So, could just at bottom line, where did we start? What did the amendments do, and how do we change the student's role?
The current structure of the board is there are 7 voting members and 1 non-voting student member. The original intent of the bill as it came in was that the county commissioners would establish school board districts, and that the new elected members would be elected from those districts. The amendments are going to get rid of the school board districts and elect 2 members from each of the county commissioner districts. There was a counting error because they also want to elect 1 member from the county at large. So instead of having 8 elected members, you would need 9 elected members, and that is the change that I referenced earlier. So there'll be 8 elected members, 2 from each county commissioner district and 1 elected from the county at large. Previously, the student member was non-voting. These amendments would allow the student member to vote on matters except those delineated at the bottom of page 20.
Thank you.
So, Senator, the original bill had new districts. I think when it became known that the new candidates would come from the council member districts, they were more open to the idea, is my guess here, that it gave them a little bit more play in potential candidates, is an outsider's assessment. Yes, Senator?
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. And so the commissioners did not want the decision of creating school board districts, and so they wanted the current commissioner districts, and so a decision that we took away from them because they didn't want it.
Okay, the bill as amended, Senator Gallion.
One more time to be clear, so that you're going to have, there's 4 districts with 2 members each, so that's 8. You have 1 countywide, or at large, is 9, and then the student member is 10. So if you have an even number, what about the top 5-5 ties?
In most bodies, you need a majority. So until they can get a majority, if it's a bill that the student government person can vote on, they're going to.
I mean, I'm going to be in favor because it's a local bill, but I was just curious. I mean, I know most of them are probably odd number, but I mean,
right.
Just curious.
It just means votes would have to be 6-4.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion on the bill as amended. Would anybody like to be recorded in the negative? Seeing no hands, no lights. Senate Bill 749 will go to the floor with the unanimous recommendation. Let's do 762. We addressed yesterday, there were a few questions. Who had that?
So Senate Bill 762 is the Maryland Electricians Act revision sponsored by Senator McCray. The bill establishes a state board licensing scheme for master electricians, journey person electricians, and apprentice electricians, whereby these particular classes have to be licensed by the board by July 1st of 2021. This bill prohibits local jurisdictions from issuing licenses, but establishes and allows local jurisdictions to register registrants for these class of electrician practice. Requires cities and counties to adopt regulations relating to the registration of registrants. And the registration requirements must meet or exceed those requirements established for state licenses. This bill requires the state board to require continuing education requirements for electricians, requires local jurisdictions to comply with yearly reporting requirements. And if no licensing scheme is established by July 1st of 2024 for low voltage electricians, the Department of Labor is required to adopt those regulations. As mentioned yesterday, there wasn't a sponsor amendment, but there is a Senator Riley amendment, and there have been updated conversations with representatives from DISH, Cisco, and A&T, which are all in support to the amendment that redefines low voltage to change that definition from low voltage electrician to limited energy services, and to establish an interim work group to be conducted or for folks to participate prior to this deadline for the licensing scheme to be established. So the deadline set now within the bill is for low voltage electricians to be licensed by July 1 of 2024, or the Department of Labor has to create and adopt those regulations. Then this interim work group with those individuals that I referenced would essentially say by or on or before December 1 of this year, the work group should convene to create and establish those regulations for low voltage. And if not, if there isn't success, if those regulations are not adopted, then the Department of Labor can come into play and establish those regulations for them. But that hasn't been adopted by a senator or an individual, to my understanding.
So who floated that to you? I mean, where's that coming from?
So this was based on a conversation today from DISH and Cisco and AT&T.
But sponsor.
No,
Okay.
but this is the same. So this is
I got it. Okay, we're on the bill. First, Senator Riley had moved his amendment yesterday. And I have a question. Senator Riley, would you be open to amending your amendment to allowing a local jurisdiction to set a higher requirement? Or not? So in other words, if a county felt it was imperative that even for doing the wiring, there should be a master electrician, they could do it if they chose to do it. Okay, so the Riley amendment basically said that up to connecting it to live power, there didn't have to be a master electrician in attendance. And I was proposing an amendment that would allow a local jurisdiction to add a requirement. It doesn't require them to, it doesn't prohibit them from doing. Senator Carrozza.
It's speaking to that point before you formally offered it. I tried to get some feedback from the chair of the Maryland State Board of Master Electricians, who worked very closely with the bill sponsor and also had a conversation with the bill sponsor. And I think I think after talking to the bill sponsor and talking to the chair, when I asked him specifically, the chair, with his experience, his feedback on Senator Riley's amendment, he said pretty much he was okay with it, but he thought the locals were already strict enough. So I think he thought it was already, that it wasn't an issue, but didn't have a problem with the amendment. So, but since you were bringing up the local role, I just wanted you to have his feedback that he thinks one of the reasons why you may not need the Riley amendment is because he thinks the locals are being strict enough. So that's just feedback for your...
Yeah, my suggestion actually came from talking with the sponsor this morning. So I don't know what to tell you. Okay, any objection to adopting the amendment to the Riley amendment? Seeing none. Any objection to the Riley amendment as amended? That's adopted. Other amendments or questions about the bill? I understand this, those people would like to push this amendment. But I think it's important, some people don't understand, there can be 12 work groups, but what they come up with still needs adoption by an agency or this legislature. I mean, just meeting doesn't mean what they come up with gets adopted. I just think that's sort of important to understand. Yes.
Bit of clarity, Senator Pinsky, on the adoption of your amendment onto Senator Riley's. So we're, can you repeat that for me so I can draft it properly? Strengthening the requirements that local jurisdictions have to enact, if I heard that correctly, for their registration?
Local jurisdictions are not precluded by adopting, I hate to say higher standards, more restrictive standards.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks. Further discussion on the bill as amended. Seeing none, we'll go to Senator Hester.
I did have one amendment I wanted to offer. Council, do you have the amendment? The one with the work group?
So this is where it gets interesting. Was waiting for feedback. I have proposed language, but it wasn't officially drafted because I wasn't aware that there was an official sponsor. So it's not a formal amendment, but I can try to draft it really fast. I can.
Senator Hester, why don't you tell us what you'd like to do?
I was approached by with two potential amendments, and the first one I ran by the sponsor of the bill, and that creates a work group to look at some of these issues. And I was hoping that we could at least offer the amendment conceptually, and I think Alexis has more information than I do.
We can put it on hold just a second time. I'm reluctant, but I don't want to decide on work group members and charges on the fly. I just don't. It'll take too long. If it's important, then we'll hold it till tomorrow. But that list is getting bigger. And again, I'm not trying to put pressure on you, but that's the facts of the legislature. So I'm willing to put it on tomorrow. If that's the will, Senator.
No, I don't want to hold the bill.
Okay, I mean, the other option is to suggest them in the House. I mean, this is not the last time. So, okay. So the bill as amended is before you for a committee vote. Will anybody want to be recorded in the negative? Seeing none, then Senate Bill 762 will be forwarded to the floor with a unanimous recommendation. Okay, let's go to 836.
All right, Senate Bill 836, State Board of Dental Examiners disciplinary action disclosure requirements and licensee profiles. The bill requires the board to disclose disciplinary proceedings, the Board of Dental Examiners by the board, to disclose disciplinary proceedings to a disciplinary committee housed in a dental facility where a dentist practices, if the committee requested in writing, if an order has been issued, and if the board determines that that information is necessary for an investigation. By disciplinary proceedings, we mean records and any type of disciplinary action. The bill requires the Board of Dental Examiners to notify facilities where the dentists practice if the board believes that the facilities should be informed or if there is an imminent threat to patient safety. The bill requires the board to disclose information about patient competency to a disciplinary committee if certain conditions are met. The bill requires the board to notify the practicing facility within 10 days of disciplinary action having taken place. There's also a list of permissive disclosures, including the board is permitted to disclose information to certain licensing authorities. The bill requires the board to create a public licensee profile to include a summary of charges alleged against the dentist, description of disciplinary actions taken, and the board is required to post a consumer protection statement alongside that public licensee profile with information that the consumer should consider regarding the dentist in their practice. There was opposition from the Maryland Board of Dental Examiners presented at the hearing, essentially saying that the requirements would be too cumbersome. And there is a sponsor amendment, which strikes all of these disclosures, permissive disclosures and mandatory disclosures. And instead of placing those responsibilities on the Board of Dental Examiners, it shifts the requirement instead to create a task force. So it would create the State Board of Dental Examiners Disciplinary Process and Actions Task Force, provides for the membership of the task force, and requires the task force to study how a complaint against a dentist is filed, how many complaints are filed each year, who is eligible to file a complaint, amongst other things. There is a reporting requirement, and the task force is to last for a year and 1 month.
Okay, Ms. Foxworth, not that this should be the motive force, but the people who opposed it initially, are they fine with this direction? Do we know or care?
So haven't received anything formal, but everything that the Board of Dental Examiners was against, all of those mandatory requirements have been stricken in the amendments. They essentially don't have to do anything.
Okay, here we are. I was holding task forces and work groups till tomorrow, but we have Senator Beidel's bill that she feels there are dental practices that are happening out there not being addressed. She came in with a bill that was very strong and opposed by the Dental Association and a number of other groups. This suggests looking at it and coming up with a solution to the challenge of dentists who are taking too long to be reprimanded. So the bill's before you, committee. What's your pleasure? The floor will entertain a motion. Not all at once. It's been moved. Is there a second? No. Okay, the bill's it's been moved and seconded. It is a task force. I think I saw a comment, if not heard a comment, about how much this moves the needle. I can't judge that. You have to judge that yourself. Is there any other discussion on whether to move this or not? Not all at once. Yeah, I mean, we can, Senator, speak to the whole.
So I guess you mentioned, at tomorrow's voting session, we're going to talk about just task force in general or individual?
From 3 to 6 bills, I don't remember exactly, and I wanted to bring them up together so people can sort of make a judgment. Not necessarily pass or kill all of them, but to understand the breadth and the time and to see it in toto.
Okay.
So we look at it in a thoughtful way when we vote on them.
Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of generally not too hot on all these task force myself, but I'm just speaking for myself.
Anybody else want to add 2 cents? Seriously, I mean, Senator Washington, you're looking for your button.
There we go. Yeah, since now, so it came in one way, so, but now it's a task force. We could look at it tomorrow with all the other task force. Is that? Okay.
That's why I asked. Okay, let's go to 205.
Okay. Senate Bill 205, alcoholic beverages, sale or delivery for off-premises consumption. This bill authorizes restaurants, bars, and taverns to sell and deliver certain alcoholic beverages for off-premises consumption or delivery as specified. A local licensing board may not charge an additional fee to an alcoholic beverages license holder for selling or delivering alcoholic beverages under the bill. Just the posture that we left this in yesterday, we had adopted Senator Pinsky's amendments to, or the committee had adopted Senator Pinsky's amendments to say that the bill would only apply in counties that passed a local law or ordinance to authorize that structure, and to additionally allow those counties to create sort of more restrictions on top of those outlined in the bill if they wanted to. The amendments adopted yesterday also put a 2-year sunset on the bill. There are amendments in your packet. They're a revised version, essentially, of the amendments that were adopted yesterday. Essentially, this would maintain that structure of the bill or the law only applying, or this authorization only existing in counties that adopted a local law or ordinance to enact those authorizations, but would essentially require the counties to adopt this structure wholesale without being able to modify it. So I've sort of underlined and put little carrots on the margins for the operative language that has changed. So, sorry, we're on page 3 of the voting packet.
This changed from yesterday.
This is a change from yesterday, yes. So the underlined pieces, or the pieces with carrots in the margin, are the language that changed. But, so instead of saying a local law or ordinance adopted under this section may authorize, et cetera, it says that the local law has to authorize, shall authorize. Again, that same language is on page 4. And then on page 5, a local law or ordinance adopted under this section may not impose additional restrictions or limitations on the sale of alcoholic beverages under subsection B or C of this section. So again, the law as it appears in the bill would be the law in those counties that chose to adopt a local law or ordinance. There is language on page 5, again, of the voting packet that may limit the quantity of alcoholic beverages. That's the same language that was in the House amendment. So again, it puts that back in the board. So in those counties that adopt this, the board would be able to limit the quantity of alcoholic beverages that could be sold or delivered under the local law or ordinance adopted under the section to an individual in a single transaction.
Okay, thank you. So these changes don't affect Senator Gallion's request for opt-in or opt-out. This is still an opt-in position. Number 2, on page 4, it talks about 21 years of age. What is the current state law for bars, taverns, restaurants of the age of the person who can serve alcohol? Do we have a statewide benchmark? Can an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old serve at a restaurant?
I don't know. I'd have to.
Does our alcohol subcommittee chair know?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. Can an 18, 19, or 20-year-old serve alcohol at a restaurant, tavern, be a bartender?
I don't know for sure, but I think I was looking in the law about something else with drivers and things like that. Some were 21 and some were 18 in different jurisdictions.
Okay. And that was my second question about common carriers. Amazon, UPS, anybody else who might be delivering alcohol today to people's homes. Is there an age qualification for that? I don't need an answer today, but I think it's a logical question to be as consistent as possible. I like 21, but I'd like to know if there is a statewide standard or if there's plenty of exceptions on either side of the issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Carrozza.
Thank you. I just would like to be walked through. Yesterday, we had the process where we came in with a version of the bill, and we thought we were going to have the debate between 3 years and 2 years, and then we had the chair's amendment about the county authority here, and now we have this. So could you just do a walkthrough of where we left yesterday and exactly how this would work at the county level?
Let me start, and then committee council can fill in. This will put a framework in place that is comparable, if not the same, as the executive order. And it will go on for 2 years. And if a county, rather than setting up their own policy, they may opt in and adopt this. Otherwise, each local jurisdiction must adopt, if they want to sell alcohol or allow off-site alcohol, adopt the policy for their jurisdiction. That's in keeping with the very broad parameters of other laws that are on the books, not specific policies, but the general alcohol statutes. And they will do that for 2 years, and that will also sunset.
Jurisdiction.
Did I get that right?
So are you talking about what was adopted yesterday, or what is adopted, or what is being offered today?
Where were we from yesterday? What was the bill? What had we gotten to in terms of the bill as amended?
Okay. Yeah, so yes, you're correct, as yesterday, yes.
Senator Carrozza.
So yesterday, if you're a local jurisdiction that would like to continue the extension, what do you have to do? What did you have to do yesterday, and what do you have to do today?
The county would have to adopt a local law or ordinance authorizing that that ability to go forward for the restaurants, bars, and taverns.
So let's say, for example, Worcester County wants to continue the governor's executive order, and which would be under this, the 2 years. In order for Worcester County to legally extend that, they would have to adopt, the local county commissioners would have to pass an ordinance to be on record that they're extending it for 2 years.
Right. They would essentially pass a local, right, exactly. And it would, then what would kick in would be this, the provisions as outlined in the bill, which are essentially the same thing as currently.
So that was both yesterday and now, but we have new amendments today. So what changed?
Right. The only change is yesterday, the version adopted yesterday would have allowed the county to, in adopting that local law, to set additional restrictions or parameters. So it would have allowed the county the county commissioners or however the county government is structured to, set limits on the amount that could be set per serving, or to maybe restrict it to certain classes of licenses.
So you could have 24 different versions of it. And this, if you're going to extend, you extend under this framework.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Well, but it's my understanding the local government is going to have to make a decision one way or the other. They're either going to have to come up with their own policy if they don't want to follow the executive order type policies, or if they want to adopt these policies, they have to say they're going to adopt these policies. So it seems to me county government's going to have to take a vote one way or the other, correct?
Well, it's either this or it's nothing. County government can't authorize, without the authority granted in the amended bill, a county government could not just unilaterally authorize restaurants to continue serving alcohol for off sale.
My understanding is that if the county government, for example, wants to be more restrictive than what's in the executive order, they can request the authority to take further action, and then they have the local liquor board do that.
It would have to be a new bill.
Look, county bill or state bill?
It would have to be a bill that came before the legislature, this legislature. The state generally has preempted regulation of alcohol. So the county, in the absence of a specific authorization under state law, cannot legislate on alcohol sales.
All right.
So this bill, so this amendment, instead of the original approach, which would be you would just allow for the extension, and it would be a statewide extension for 2 years, this bill is now requiring each individual jurisdiction to take action to opt in order to extend for 2 years.
Ms. Robb, do you want to come forward, or do you want to stay out of this?
Does this microphone work? Oh, here. We want you on record.
Yes, Sally Robb. Senator Croza, would you mind repeating your question, please?
So I'm trying to understand where we were before we started the additional amendments. My understanding is we were looking at what I thought was a version that would allow the extension of the executive order for either 2 or 3 years, and at that point we were negotiating between a time frame. Yesterday, with the chair's amendment, I wanted to understand that instead of having kind of a state law that would allow for the extension, whether it's 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, which I thought most of us thought that was the debate. Now we're hearing that. Now we're saying we are putting it on each individual local jurisdiction to, quote, opt in, so requiring them to take action, and if they want to extend, they have to do so under the framework of this bill. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, before Ms. Robb replies, it was my understanding, I think what I verbalized yesterday was, whereas some would like to have a state policy for 24 jurisdictions and maybe continue the executive order in the absence of it, there are some jurisdictions that were very frustrated and concerned of public health, of how it's working even under the executive order. And we wanted to allow jurisdictions to take more restrictive action and not just extend the executive order. And I thought that's what we were attempting to do in this bill. So given the senator's question and my response, Ms. Robb.
Senator Croza, I believe that's correct. So the posture of the bill as it stands with these new amendments would give the authorization to the local jurisdiction. However, if they decide to opt in or to authorize the continued sale of to-go alcoholic beverages or delivery of alcoholic beverages from these specified entities, they would have to follow the provisions of the bill. The local jurisdiction is not allowed to deviate in any way, with the exception that the local liquor board could decide to limit the quantity of what is sold for delivery. So right now, the local jurisdiction, as it's proposed in the amendments from today, would have to say yes or no, we do want to continue this. I also just want to note that I believe, and committee counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, the executive order is currently in place today. And the way the bill is that it takes effect as of July 1st, I believe, and remains effective for a period of 2 years. So that takes us to 2023. And at that moment then, or before then, the legislature could come back in and revisit the issue. But even if the bill didn't pass today, it doesn't mean that there wouldn't necessarily be continued authorization, because the administration's executive order is still in effect and could be so for a period of several months.
Okay, thank you. So then my follow-up question would be, if the reason we went from just merely extending it at the state level, and then we went to the chair's amendment of that, the local opt-in, which then puts it on each individual jurisdiction, because we're trying to address maybe a jurisdiction or two that may not want to extend, why wouldn't we do the reverse and allow a state law to extend as they are right now, making it easier for our local jurisdictions, and have an opt-out? Wouldn't it accomplish the same purpose with, I think, less strain at the local level?
It could, but I think the perhaps benefit in requiring an opt-in is that it flags, for lack of a better term, for the local jurisdiction, the need to contemplate, as the bill includes language, balancing the public health concern or any other concerns, including resources, with the need to really assist these businesses that we know are struggling. So, for example, if a local jurisdiction needs to consider hiring some contractual individuals to assist in enforcement, or wants to take any other additional actions that would provide resources to make sure that this is implemented well, this would also flag that for them, that this is a good point. Oh, we're going to continue this affirmatively for 2 more years, and we might need to perhaps give additional support to the Alcoholic Beverages Board, or to monitor certain areas in which there could be open container violations.
And I understand the response. It just, again, the sensitivity at the local level, given what they've experienced, whether it's the businesses or the county government working with those entities. So,
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Robb has explained the bill, and the minor change here puts the limits back to the Board of Liquor Commissioners and away from the local county government, which was raised yesterday by the Senator from Anne Arundel County. So, we had adopted a couple of amendments yesterday. We rejected some amendments. We did a vote to keep 2 years instead of 3. We adopted the Pinsky amendments. Is there any objection to Pinsky Part 2, which shifted the limit issue back to the Board of Liquor Commissioners and away from the county government? Sure.
The House amendments that came over basically said it's for a certain amount of time, but the locals could limit the amounts of quantity. So in actuality, is all this doing with your new amendments just basically saying the county's got to pass a law or resolution, and then it's the same as the House? And is that what they want? Or is that what some people want? Some jurisdictions?
Not the House, but, I mean, I know there are people in Baltimore City, our own Senator Washington said they're having major problems, and they might not want to do any of this. I mean, they want to...
So this gives them the option to not do anything. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Any objection to my amendment to the amendment? Okay. The bill is amended. Discussion. Debate. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know what the House is going to do, so we might be discussing this a second or third or fourth time over the next 3 weeks. Okay, let's do a roll call.
Senate Bill 845, Education Workforce Development Sequence Scholarships Eligibility. This bill expands eligibility for the Workforce Development Sequence Scholarship to include a Maryland resident or graduate of a Maryland high school who is enrolled directly in a registered apprentice program. There is one amendment on page 28 of your packet, and this revises this definition to include first-year students who are not receiving federal or state financial aid and who are directly enrolled in a registered apprentice program that partners with a community college in the state. There is no opposition at the hearing.
Motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Question.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Goodman, I just want to clarify that state financial aid, that legislative scholarships are not counted, is that, or are they? So then someone getting a scholarship from one of us then would be precluded, so they'd be punished for being organized and assertive enough to pursue a scholarship through us from getting this. Is that what we would want? And my worry would be if we get, how big are these opportunities? Because sometimes some legislators give out $200, $100, $500. On the House, they can give out less than we can. They can give smaller gifts. $200, that's what I said. We're $400. Thank you, Senator Simonet. That's exactly what I was going to say. So we can give the minimum of $400, but delegates can give $200. So $200 from one of their delegates could cost them how much on this bill?
That is her amendment. I'm just passing it along.
So I'm just
It's
suggesting.
a policy decision whether you think that's a good idea or not a good idea.
So Ms. Goodman, my question is, what is the range of what? I don't remember, and I can't. Can you just lay out, please, what a student could be eligible for in terms of workforce development sequence scholarships?
Let's see. So a workforce development sequence means a program offered by a community college that is approved by the commission and composed of courses that are related to job preparation or an apprenticeship, licensure or certification, or job skill enhancement, or a registered apprenticeship program approved by the Division of Workforce Development and Learning in the Maryland Department of Labor. So these look to be not credit-bearing classes at community colleges.
Okay, so it looks like, I'm in the bill, it looks like there's not a dollar amount in this.
No, there's no dollar amount in this.
So I don't want to, for me, the policy of precluding someone because they might get $200 from one of their delegates seems counterindicated. And so I guess my suggestion, I'm going to offer an amendment to the amendment, which is something like that does not include legislative scholarships. Don't know if there's a second. Don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
Okay, it's been moved, it's been moved and seconded. It's on the floor for debate.
The amendment or the bill? Or my amendment? Okay, my amendment to the amendment?
Your amendment is the...
Sorry, to say again, so currently the Benson amendment is you're out of luck and you can't participate in this if you receive any federal or state financial aid, and that would include legislative scholarships. So I'm going to suggest that doesn't seem, I'm actually not sure that I love that. I think if someone is aggressive enough to pursue federal or state financial aid, that they shouldn't be penalized for it. So not only don't I, so A, I would like the legislative scholarships to be specifically exempted, but B, I'm not so sure about the first part of her amendment. So,
Senator Washington, followed by Senator Carrozza.
I think I'm picking up from my colleague over here. I think I didn't really get that. I didn't realize that this bill was excluding. Can we sorry. Can I understand what the bill is attempting to do? Because the way I didn't see that. So what is the bill doing? And why would we take money away from any student? So, does anyone know the genesis and what?
So it's from my understanding, this is a cleanup bill.
Okay.
So there was a legislation passed in 2017, the More Jobs for Marylanders Act of 2017, that established this scholarship for eligible students who enrolled in a workforce development sequence at a community college.
Okay.
And then we passed legislation in 2018, the Career Preparation Expansion Act of 2018, that expanded the definition of workforce development sequence to include registered apprenticeship programs.
Right.
But the definition of eligible student didn't cover those students. So this was a cleanup bill to allow those students to be eligible for the program, even though essentially the other legislation would have allowed them to do that.
Right, and I see that, but now the amendment now does something more than that? I'm trying to...
Right, so essentially it limits, instead of just saying students who are registered at apprenticeship programs, it limits it to very specific students at the first year who's not receiving this aid, and in an apprenticeship program that partners with the public community college in the state.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I would ask the sponsor of the amendment if we even need that. So thank you.
So, Senator Washington, could I respond? I now have a specific proposal. I'm in the bill. So on the Benson amendment, I would like to suggest that the first part be stricken and the second part be kept. So we would strike first-year student who is not receiving federal or state financial aid, or we just keep the first-year student, which is, I don't care one way or another, but take out the who is not receiving federal or state financial aid, but keep the program that partners with the public community college in the state.
Okay. Which do you want for the first part of the amendment?
Does anyone, Senator Washington, do you or does anyone else have any thoughts about first-year student or keeping that out? Okay, then I would take that out. I would take the first part of Amendment 2 out. Is a first-year student who is not receiving federal or state financial aid, but keep that partners with a public community college in the state.
Okay, it's been moved. The motion has been proffered. Is there a second to put it in front of us? Okay, the discussion is adding only the last line of the Benson Amendment, essentially. Any objection? Seeing none, it's adopted. We won't stay real late. I think we're losing a little energy here. Probably used it last night. Okay, then we've adopted the last line of the amendment, and that'll be rolled into the bill appropriately. The bill as amended. Further discussion? Seeing none, would anybody like to be recorded in the opposition on the bill? This cleanup bill is passed to the floor unanimously.
Ready? Senate Bill 895, University System of Maryland, Student Fees, Review and Retention. This bill requires that, when setting mandatory and non-mandatory student fees, the president of each University System of Maryland institution must present information on such fees for review by a committee of students. The information presented to the committee must include 1, the amount of the fee, 2, the students who will be charged, and 3, the proposed use of revenues from the fee. Unless the student committee reviews an exception to the use of the fee, revenues derived from fees as reviewed by the committee must be retained by the campus unit or department that imposed the fee. There is one amendment from the sponsor on page 29 of your packet. This amendment makes a small change to the short title of the bill. It names the students reviewing the fees to be the Student Fee Committee of Record. It requires the fees to be spent by the campus unit or department that requests the fee in a manner consistent with the intended purpose of the fee, and authorizes fees to be spent beyond it authorizes the fees to be spent beyond the intended purpose if the Student Fee Committee of Record reviews an exception to the use of the fee. There was no opposition at the hearing.
Seeing none, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with this, these amendments, will that student committee have a veto in the use of the fees for other than the intended purpose?
So the law itself, as drafted here, would require that these fees be used for their intended purpose, the purposes for which the fees were requested. So the students themselves don't have a veto power per se. They just presented to give some input on whether the amount is good, who will be charged, proposed, basically, since they're being charged, they want their input and feedback.
Right. So if the administration at the college, the university, wants to send that fees to another purpose, can they do that? Or
under this bill, no. They would have to, the exception would have to be reviewed by the Student Fee Committee, and then the fees could be used for a different purpose.
Senator, the purpose of the bill is for that very reason, to put a better check and balance. It doesn't remove the authority to do it, but you got to go through this process if you're redirecting money from the fees.
right, and so I'm not clear if the student committee says no, you can't use it for another purpose. Well, do they have that right to say that? So
I think that it just has to be, as the chair said, it has to be put through the process so that the students would know that the fees that are being spent for a purpose not originally intended. It just says the Student Committee of Record that reviewed the fee reviews an exception to the use of the fee.
okay.
That's
So-
all it says.
Okay, thank you. So it's a review that the students will have, not a veto of the decision to use
My
it.
understanding is, the university does not want to give up its authority to make those types of budgetary decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further discussion on 895. Seeing none, anybody want to vote in the negative? Unanimous, 11-0. I've got two bills, withdrawn bills, 248. 248 is being withdrawn. Yeah, tomorrow. Tonight, around midnight. And 706 is also being withdrawn from Senator Feldman. Is there a motion unfavorable? Moved unfavorable, unanimous. They are voted unfavorable. I'm trying to clean up. There's a bill 931 that wasn't on the list. It's Prince George's bill to extend their school surcharge. I believe we have a letter. We do. It does have an amendment.
It does, yes.
I'm looking for the
The
letter.
amendment's on page 32, which is the very back of your packet.
It's basically a reporting amendment as to how much money is coming in for the surcharge to use for schools and public safety. Senator?
Is there a cap on this surcharge? I think normally we had a cap when I was on the county council. They couldn't just go 90%, so to speak.
So they can't reduce it more than 50%. I'm looking at the law. I'm not sure there is. There is a fixed number that they have,
Yeah.
I assume they have to take further action, Senator, but I don't know.
Okay. And I would like to know if there's a cap on it. If we could just hold it till tomorrow, I could find out.
Yes, the bottom of the page.
So this is the bill that we held yesterday pending additional information. Should I go ahead and just re-review? So Senate Bill 922, Office of Legislative Audits, Acceptance and Investigation of Allegations of Fraud, Waste, and Abuse. Sponsor amendment should be towards the back of your voting packet. But the bill, sponsored by Senator Lamb, expands the authority of the Office of Legislative Audits to compel the production of confidential information, public and private records, through subpoena powers. It also expands the authority of OLA to subpoena witnesses to further investigations that are related to fraud and abuse allegations. The bill permits the Office of Legislative Audits to coordinate an investigation with the Office of the Attorney General, Office of the State Prosecutor, and other state and local law enforcement units and prosecutorial agencies. Requires the law enforcement units to share information with OLA employees to further an investigation, and specifies that OLA disclosure protocols apply to allegations of fraud, waste, or abuse. Also requires OLA to maintain a fraud hotline for the reporting of fraud, waste, and abuse of state resources, and may use authority under current law to refer allegations to more appropriate agencies. The bill finally requires state government units, agencies, departments, programs, et cetera, to post visible and conspicuous notices and links in either their buildings or their websites that relate to making reports to the Office of Legislative Audits. So no opposition was presented at the hearing, and there is a sponsor amendment. We discussed yesterday the scope of this authority of this sponsor amendment. So it's not changing or altering any of the current powers that are vested within Office of Legislative Audits. But it is requiring OLA to consult with the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of the State Prosecutor to develop statutory language that will enhance OLA authority on investigations of fraud, waste, and abuse. And in doing so, it is removing the proposed bill language that would expand their authority to issue subpoenas and to compel witnesses in investigations of fraud, waste, and abuse. So removing the authority that was going to be enhanced through the bill, and instead requiring a consultation with several of the stakeholders that were proposed within the bill language. The fraud hotline is maintained. OLA has a reporting requirement to submit a report to the Joint Audit Committee, and additionally removes the several requirements that were placed on state agencies, one of which is to report unethical conduct to OLA, and that is embedded within this consultation requirement instead of requiring state agencies to report on ethical conduct to OLA. In this consultation between OLA, Office of Attorney General, and Office of the State Prosecutor, they'll work together to develop the appropriate language to provide directives on how to report. And the same goes for the removal of the requirement for state agencies to provide timely cooperation on inquiries from OLA. That'll be a part of the consultation piece between Office of the Attorney General and Office of the State Prosecutor as well.
Or if we moved it before us yesterday or not.
I think we held it.
I know, I meant whether we had a motion. It's been moved favorable. It's been seconded. Anybody object to the sponsor amendment? Seeing none, that's adopted. The bill as amended. Senator Carrozza.
Thank you. It's more just picking up from yesterday and a little deja vu. We had the conversation with the bill sponsor about the changes in the bill. What changed from yesterday to today?
So there isn't a change in the amendment. So the bill, I think we're going to touch base and get some additional clarity that was requested by a senator who wanted some questions answered. So it's not necessarily changing anything, but on yesterday I did misspeak about some of the powers and authorities that were being created and removed. So I'm just clarifying the correct changes that are happening within the statute now. So the way the bill and the amendments are proposed, the way the amendments are proposed, there isn't any change that's happening to the current authority that OLA is given. They still have the authority to have access to confidential records, et cetera. But the bill would have enlarged the scope of their authority in regards
Of
to...
whose authority?
Of OLA's authority. And they would have had the authority to have production of materials that would have been with the intention of investigating fraud, waste, and abuse allegations. And in addition, they would have had the authority to compel witnesses by subpoena.
Which they don't have those authorities, but they're able to coordinate and cooperate with the appropriate prosecutorial entities.
Yep.
And so yesterday, we were trying to get clarification on the coordination and cooperation with what the state's prosecutor's office is that, and if the bill sponsor wants to respond, if that's where we are.
Okay. So, thank you. The bill had originally asked for some expanded authorities. The amendment took that down to ask the state prosecutor's office and the attorney general's office to meet with OLA to figure out how they could do that without impinging on the AG's or state prosecutor's authority. And it does not remove any current authorities that OLA has. The bill itself has text from the current statute. You're probably familiar with this too. They have text from the current statute. The amendment removes any changes to that, so it made it look like it was actually removing current statute. It's not. So everything that OLA has in terms of its authority stays. What the bill essentially, bottom line, does is have the state prosecutor's office and the attorney general's office meet with OLA to figure out how they can come back with recommended language for expanded authority next year. And then it also requires departments, state agencies, to provide information on the OLA's hotline, the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. That's all the bill does.
So your expectation is that they're going to have a work group to come back and request extended authorities for OLA?
It is that they're going to meet and also suggest language for future legislation to be able to look into fraud, waste, and abuse for OLA without impinging on the ability of the state prosecutor or attorney general's office to conduct criminal investigations.
Okay. Because the original bill, it looked like
the original bill would have
OLA said we don't need these authorities because they were really in the lane of the other two offices, correct?
The original bill actually expanded their authority to be able to investigate this, but that expansion, in a way, looked like it was impinging on some of the state prosecutors and attorney general's authorities. And so OLA, Mr. Hook basically indicated, let's pull that back and let's study that and meet with the other stakeholders to figure out how we can have that additional authority without, infringing on their criminal prosecutorial authority. Okay. So that's what the amendment does. It pulls that back, but it retains the requirement for the departments to be posting the OLA hotline information.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Senator Ellis.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, when I hear certain terms used together, I kind of perk up. So this is Office of Legislative Audit, and I had discussion with the bill sponsor about this. And so audit is one thing, investigation is another thing, examination. And so, when you want to look at accounting professionals, CPAs doing an audit, that has one standard under the General Acceptable Auditing Standards. And when you look at bringing in investigative powers, and I think that's where they probably had issues with the Attorney General and the state prosecutor. So I'm pretty much clear with that. But going back, was it 2 years ago or last year with the issue with University System of Maryland, UMS, the University Medical System, where the auditors, OLA, Office of Legislative Audit, went in, and the organizations decided not to provide documents that were requested because whatever. Does this enhance bill fix that situation?
This bill does not, because this bill doesn't actually give OLA any additional authority. OLA will work with the Attorney General's office and State Prosecutor's office over the interim to come up with language that may give them additional authority without impinging on the other two stakeholders involved, but it does not resolve that issue. Ordinarily, as an aside, OLA doesn't go into investigate University of Maryland Medical System either. That was a special request as a result of legislation that we had passed. So that's not normally part of their audit process.
Right, but yeah. So we can, as a body, we can ask OLA to audit different entities in the state.
We can, yes. The University of Maryland Medical Systems maintain that they're not a state agency, not part of the state. That's why it requires special, statutory authority for OLA to go in and do that. The Joint Audits Committee can make requests of OLA to do audits and out-of-cycle audits, and then any member as well can make that request to the Joint Audits and Evaluation Committee, and we can consider that and also submit that to OLA.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, the bill before you as amended, further discussion, debate, seeing no lights except for the sponsor. Will anybody like to be recorded in the negative on the legislation 922? Seeing none, that'll be recorded such, 11-0, and that'll be reported to the floor. Okay, we're going to take up, Ms. Foxworth, 636. We got the okay from B&T. Now, did we take it up as a discussion?
I'm not understanding.
Did we vote it?
No, we haven't seen this one yet.
Okay, we're going to try to take it up, and then this will be the last one, I think. We're going to save 117 to tomorrow. Ms. Foxworth?
So Senate Bill 636, Housing and Development Neighborhood Revitalization Passive House Pilot Program. This is sponsored by Senator Hayes. This bill establishes a passive house pilot program within the Department of Housing and Community Development. The purpose of the program is to assist nonprofit organizations that partner with neighboring high schools to renovate residential properties to become passive houses, which will be based on passive house standards. The bill outlines the project proposals that the department is required to consider in conducting the program, and requires the department to give priority to projects where a nonprofit is working with the high school or higher education institution. The bill creates a passive house pilot program fund and creates or outlines the purpose of the fund, which is to cover property acquisition and renovation costs in part. The bill requires interest earnings to be deposited back into this fund as opposed to the general fund of the state. There was no opposition presented at the hearing, and there are no amendments to the bill.
B&T gave us the go-ahead to proceed even with the price tag. Is there a motion? It's been moved by Senator Washington. Is there a second? Senator Riley. Debate, discussion, other amendments? Please, Senator.
I haven't had a chance to look at it. Is there a fiscal note?
Yes. That's why I went to B&T.
Yeah, would you review the fiscal note?
$1 million.
And that would come out of general funds allocation by the governor in the next budget?
The fiscal...
The following 23.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be for 22.
Right.
That
Right.
budget's, yeah. Yes, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion on the bill. There are no amendments, correct? Senator Ellis.
Yeah, thank you. So I might have been out of the committee presenting the bill when this bill was presented. And so what is a passive house? I'm not sure. I'm looking at the notes and I don't have a good idea what a passive house is.
So the best way that I can understand based on my framework and knowledge, Senator Ellis, is essentially it is one of the higher standards of like energy efficiency and they are conducted in a way where, like, the buildings are airtight so that there isn't energy leakage. So that's the best kind of working framework I have for understanding it. But it,
thank you.
yeah,
It's in terms of energy efficiency.
in terms of energy,
thank you.
yeah, preventing energy loss. And
Senator, the other things, because this is, I don't think it's the first year, this is the school in Baltimore apprentice program, partnering with this clean energy group, using houses near the school for the students to actually work on repairing and renovating the schools. So it gives them the skills and also upgrades the community to have more quality housing. As I understand it, Ms. Foxworth, do you recall from the testimony, is that correct?
yep, that sounds correct to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
The bill's before us. Discussion, debate. It's got the imprimatur to upstairs, although it sounds like they've been bowling tonight. They've been rumbling up here. I don't know what. Okay. Anybody want to vote red? Unfavorable? Seeing no lights or hands, that'll be recorded and sent to the floor as such. Okay. I'm sorry? No, we already got the pre-approval.
Quickly,
Okay.
on 737, we have additional co-sponsors that I forgot to mention. Is that all right if we just?
Beyond the ones that were added here? Okay. Any objection? There were a few other people who notified us wanted to be co-sponsors on the 737 Comprehensive Conservation Finance Act. Besides a couple people who put their names up, a few others came to the committee. Any objection to adding them as well?
Senator Smith, Gazone, and Young.
Okay. So we have about 4 bills we held today, and we have, as I said, some other bills, substantive, well, they're all substantive, but some bills tomorrow. Then we have the honorary days, and we have work groups. So we will meet between floor session and a second session, and we may have to meet briefly after the second session. I want to move as much as we can tomorrow. I don't want to say absolutely anything move Friday doesn't make it because the crossover could be extended. So we're just going to try to push through, and hopefully next week things will be a lot more relaxed. In terms of House bills, we are not having hearings if it's a cross-file that we have moved. That's why we'll just assume we've moved the bill, we'll take it up, we'll amend it, we won't amend it, whatever. We're just having hearings on bills that have not been cross-filed. We will obviously vote on all of them. The ones where it's a cross-file that we've already moved, those kind of voting sessions will be quick. The only question will be whether we adopt amendments or not. So that's sort of the plan starting next week or the week after. And as you know, last year, the House members were a little upset with us, one, because COVID, and things were a little hectic those last few weeks for a lot of reasons. So we'll try to move what we can, but first we're focusing on Senate bills. So with that, we're adjourned. Get some rest.